Hey everyone, it's Luke from Safety Wise. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Conversations for Change. In our Conversations for Change podcast, it's where we talk to seasoned health and safety professionals and we explore their journey, sort of where they've come through in life, how they've got to the role they're in, things they've learnt along the way and things they do differently and so forth. And hopefully this gives you a bit of insight and food for thought, in your own safety journey. Joining me today is Sam Lloyd. Sam, just for everyone's benefits, where are you calling from?
Down in sunny Geelong at the moment, mate, as
Sunny
opposed
Geelong.
to Upper Melbourne.
I don't think we ever use sunny in Geelong or sunny in Melbourne in the same sentence, right?
But yeah, just how we roll sometimes.
For those not familiar with Melbourne, if you don't like the weather, go inside for 5 minutes.
That's it.
It'll change. So thanks for joining us, Sam. So look, Sam and I have known each other for years now. I actually don't even recall how long it is.
Years. 25 years, something like that.
Yeah, it's been quite a long time, and at one stage we were business partners in a safety consulting business and so forth. So we've got a bit of a checkered history between us. So this is going to be an interesting one. So Sam, give us a bit of a rundown. Your background, where did you start, and how did you end up where you are now?
Where did I started with BHP, or back in the day, John Lysart down in Hastings as an apprentice fitter, and then I done my time there, and a couple of years out of my time, I went into operations for about 10 years, and then I joined 2 or 3 years into operations. I joined the emergency response team down there, which is now Blue Scope Steel. I'm going to say early 1990-ish type thing, and I was a first responder for 10 years, and then I become the industrial fire officer down there for about, I think it was about 6 years in the end. And then obviously we branched out from there. And I think I'm going to say 2007, I think it was, into Total Hazard Solutions for a few years there with you and I. And then, I think 2010 was the first time I sort of went out on my own. And I was the lead at ExxonMobil there for their largest turnaround or shutdown in Exxon Mobil's history in Melbourne. That was I think I was the lead there for about 10 months, and then consequently over the preceding 10 years all over Australia for Santos and Caltex and Quinos and pipeline drilling, things like that for 10 years. And then I got into tier 1 civil construction world down here in Victoria, and I spent building bridges and across floodplains and things like that, and then ended up at North East Link at the senior at Lower Plenty Road, which is $1 billion site in itself. And then obviously the opportunity come along basically 2 years ago with yourself, with Safety Wise, when you made the approach. So I've had a long and varied history in many aspects of safety, and consequently I still enjoy this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely not the traditional approach that many people have with safety. Like, you haven't come from a health and safety role. It's not like you're a health and safety advisor or a health and safety manager. I mean, you started on the tools, and obviously gives you a really fascinating insight into the health and safety issues, and then moved into the emergency response and first responder role and so forth. How was those early years, as a fitter and then going into operations? How's that shaped where you are now?
Look, I think personally, Blue Scope Steel down here in Hastings, or Blue Scope Steel in Australia, has a phenomenal lockout, tag out system and things like that. So I've gone from, we'll just shut some valves, bleed some things off and make sure it doesn't work and crawl under something, all the way through to watching it morph into, there's 2 fitters, there's 2 sparkies, there's a shutdown leader, isolation leader, there's validation and verification for lockout tag outs, there's full programs, and you put one lock on now and 500 people put a lock on. Because all that work's been done, but that work was being done over 24, 48 hours. And I still talk about this often about Blue Scope Steel at Port Kembla. I was at Port Kembla in 2008, 2009, I think. We're doing a demolition construction job, and I went over to the blast furnace number 5 up at Port Kembla there, and there was 1,800 locks on. It takes them 4 days to shut down the blast furnace, check it all and everything like that. So when companies say to me it's all too hard, my response is no, you just don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it was BlueScope Steel where you and I first crossed paths. So for those who don't know, in one of my roles many years ago, I used to do fire safety auditing and inspections and servicing of fire equipment and so forth. And I ended up taking over and looking after the BlueScope site. What a baptism of fire for someone who's never been in manufacturing, never been in heavy industry at all. And as Sam said, Sam said he still talks about it today. So do I. And it's fascinating. You said the lockout, tag out, and the permit system, that sort of stuff. I put that stuff that I learnt there as like a pinnacle benchmark of what good looks like. I think they do a phenomenal job. And like you, I struggle when people say it's too hard, or they complain. There's 5 locks, and what a pain. This is really painful. And I was part of works where I saw that sort of stuff going on that you're talking about. Well, obviously I didn't get involved in shutdowns with 1,800 locks, but that's mind blowing. Like that's mind boggling, to try and wrap the head around. Now, for those that don't understand, I'm going to digress a little bit. Just talk a little bit about BlueScope at Hastings and what it is they do, because that's a monster place. It's big, It's heavy, it's everything, and you can think of a hazard, it's there. No two ways about it. So just for those that are not familiar with the site, just take us through, I guess, from the wharf through to the mills and where it ends up. I just want to paint a picture for people to understand this industry.
Yeah, so there was, back in the day before they shut down the hot strip mill, the slabs used to come in, and I'm just going to use some rough terms. They used to come in like 13 to 15 metres long, 280 to 320 millimetres thick, 30 tons, give or take. And they used to come down from Port Kembla, and they'd be brought in from the wharf on what's called a row wharf, roll on, roll off wharf. They get stacked and packed down at the wharf area, and then we'd have crest carriers would pick up 4, 5, 6 at a time and bring them down a road and bring them into the back end of the hot strip mill.
Now hold that. Bring it down the road is a whole other thing. How fast is a crest going, carrying 5 or 6 of these slabs?
Yeah, they carry, I think from memory, they used to carry, now I'm shooting from the hip here, but they used to carry like something like a 120 ton or 150 ton, and they could go 60 k's an hour and things like that, right? And it's quite impressive.
Again, if you haven't seen it, this is amazing. And I know my time down there, I would often go and sit off to the side and just be mind blown watching these things operate. They are phenomenal. Yeah.
And then, the crane used to pick them up out of the what's called the charge bay and load them onto the furnace, and they'd go through a heating furnace. They'd heat up to about, like I said, I'm shooting from the hip here, but let's say 1,200 degrees. And they'd come out, and we would run them through the roughing mill, the finish mill, and into the coil box. So they would go from 280, let's say 300 mil, down to 3 mil. So they go through there.
In minutes?
In minutes, yeah. So they'd make a pass through the roughing mill. They'd do 7 passes through the roughing mill, which would blow all the scale off with high-pressure water. We're talking 5,000 psi of water. Do 7 passes there, go through a 5-stand mill, and they'll curl up into a coil box, go through the 5-stand mill, which would reduce them from 20 mil down to 3 mil, and then they'd call them up at the other end. They would go to the pickle line, which would clean them and trim them. So pickling was hydrochloric acid. So they would clean them and get rid of all the scale and rust and everything like that. And in the end, when I was in operations, I used to work in the 5-stand mill, and I was the senior I eventually become the senior process operator on one of the crews there. And we would
sorry, just to clarify, that's a cold strip mill, so that's what they're not heated. It's just pure brute force to reduce diameter again.
Yeah, 5-stand mill, so you'd have 5 stands, and you would go in at like 3 mil, and you would come out at 0.42. And anyone who's familiar with roofing iron or colour bond or anything like that, that was our, for want of a better word, bread and butter. We've done lots of other things more than that, but let's just say that was the bread and butter.
Yeah.
So we'd reduce that, and then it would go over to the galvanising lines. It would get galvanised, and then it would go over to the paint line, it would get painted, and then it would go out to subsidiaries out from there, and it get roll formed into the corrugations and things like that, right? And the different colours and everything like that. So we had 9 different processes or different plants working there. Now, at the moment, the hot strip mill is now gone. So that's all finished now. So they're down to 8. So there's 3 there's still a pickle line, a 5-stand mill, or a cold mill as they call it, and then there's 3 galvanising lines, 2 paint lines, and then obviously out to subsidiaries from there, and a coil annealing as well.
So it's a fascinating beast. If people are curious to look at it, I was actually just showing some friends not long ago. Jump on YouTube and look up hot strip mill, and I think there's even a video of the one at Western Port that's actually on YouTube, and you can see what Sam's talking about. As he said, it comes out of the furnace at 1200 plus degrees. These things are, what do you say, 30 ton, depending on size and all that.
Give or take,
and literally minutes later, there are 3 mil coil at the other end. It's just an incredible process, absolutely incredible.
And then consequently, like when I was doing emergency response there, like we would have fires and gas leaks and hazardous materials. I've had people shot with ball bearings, crushing injuries, all sorts of things, and that's just me. And when I become an industrial fire officer, I had 4 teams that would manage, well, not managing, but looking after all of that on a 24/7 basis. So we could get turned out to a heart attack, someone not feeling well. We've had forklifts drive through the front of vehicles down on the wharf where they've had 30-ton forklifts with a wharf vehicle puncher through the window and things like that, car accidents and anything in between.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not sure if we actually answered the question. I probably hijacked that a little bit, and apologies.
That's right.
How has that experience shaped where you are now?
I've got to say, after, let's say the best part of 30 years, give or take, I like being at the front end around the preparation and planning and the prevention. This response and recovery is not a play. It's all gone to. And unfortunately, when you talk about response and recovery, you're talking typically about people, and that's difficult. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a first responder, whether you're in emergency forces, whether you're in armed forces, anything to do with people, it becomes quite difficult to manage because of people. And I like being at the front end of stuff. We're doing the planning and the preparation, so we don't have to do the response and recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just talk briefly about the emergency response role with Blue Scope. So just talk a little bit about the resourcing. So you said you had 4 teams rostered 24 hours a day. Equipment-wise, talk about that, talk about training, that sort of stuff. Again, I just want to paint a picture for people sort of what Blue Scope do and how they do stuff, because, again, it's fascinating insight.
Yeah, so we had, on any given time, we had anywhere between 8 to 12 fire crew members on each crew. So you would have up to 48, depending on transition, who's moving, who's going to what department, things like that, but typically across 2 departments. And we'd have a 3-minute response to the station and a 3-minute response to anywhere in the plant. And as I said before, we could have, medical assistance because we had an on-site nurse. We could have hazardous materials response. We had a Scania V6 ex-MFB pumper, plus we had an ex-CFA pumper. I'm assuming the CFA pumper now is probably 40 years old, maybe a bit more. The Scania MFB pumper was, at the time, probably 20 years old. We have it refurbished. Plus we had a hazardous material confined space Fiat Ducato with all the confined space and hazardous material gear in there and atmospheric testing equipment and things like that. And then we also had some day-to-day stuff where we'd plan and prepare for confined space entry across the site. So we had a fire station with, BA, where I think in the end, I'm going to say we had 16, maybe 20 functional sets of BA.
Yeah, that does ring a bell.
Maybe 48 to 60 BA cylinders, compressor, hazmat suits, the everything that you would see in the country back in the day with the
Yeah.
Country Fire Authority,
Yeah.
which is now Fire Rescue Victoria.
Yeah.
We pretty much had it on site.
Yeah. Yeah. And if memory serves me correct, there was a fair bit of inroads made around mutual responses between Blue Scope and external agencies like CFA. So cross responding with each other, on site, off site.
And a lot of our training was all based on the CFA training. So the hierarchy control, the whole lot like that, all the words that were spoken. So and all of and our preparation was to get all of our emergency responders on site up to Cert 2 and firefighting and emergency response, and if not Cert 3.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's big. That's big.
Yeah. And so, and that would take anything up to 3 years to do, plus emergency response, plus training, plus rookies course. We used to run a 5-day rookies course so that we'll get them BA, firefighting, pump skills, things like that. Plus then we'd have things like hazardous materials, which would be a 2-day course, confined space rescue, which would be a 2-day course, level 2 first aid plus oxygen therapy, which was another 2-day course, so there was, and I dipped my hat to Blue Scope at the time. They spent a lot of money at that time really preparing exceptionally well.
Yeah. It was again, just trying to paint that picture for people. Like, it was an incredible setup. It really was quite incredible. They didn't spare expense. I remember being part of the two people that introduced the thermal imaging camera to site, and they had it on trial for a month. And I think it was day one, like the following day after we dropped it off, the HV team had discovered overheating switches and all sorts of stuff. Like, it paid for itself. Literally one incident paid for itself, and it wasn't even an emergency call. And there was no hesitation. They went, "Yep, done, easy. Here's purchase order." An easy sell. Yeah, so that's interesting. And again, you're right. People talk about, lockout tagout's too hard, or permits are too hard, or this is too hard. Mate, if sites like this can do it at that scale, and I can't remember the size. I think from memory, we're talking something like 1,500 acre site or something. I can't quite remember the size. But
in its heyday, there was 2,000 people. And don't get me wrong, in the early days, we got it wrong. Like, we would miss isolations and everything like that. But I give them their dues. They would go back again, review their isolation sheets, look at everything like that, see where they tapped into other isolations and corrected it all. So, they took it seriously because people got killed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember that from my time there. There was people horrifically injured and killed while I was there. And that stuff's unforgiving. You're talking about a 30-ton coil of steel or crest carriers, carrying 80 ton at 60 k's an hour. That stuff doesn't forgive.
So there was a lot to learn there, and it really, I didn't realise how good it was until I actually left there for other opportunities, and I went, wow.
So let's explore that. What do you mean? So Hal, we obviously, you left there. You and I went into business for a few years. We're doing safety training, safety consulting, labour hires. So Sam did all the labour hire side of things for those who are unaware. And then when we closed that business, you went out on your own and you were doing shutdowns and basically say a gun for hire, for want of a better word, for shutdowns and stuff.
And still doing it to this day. People ring and say, "Can you do this?" And it's like, I could turn my hand to a lot of things, but give me a definitive scope. What do you want from me? Because some of it I won't do. I'm very pragmatic in the way that I go and approach work. Like, everyone's got work for you and everything like that, but it's having the right person do the right job.
Yeah, for sure. So you were saying you didn't realise until you left Blue Scope sort of what other places were like. Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so like my first oil and gas job, I think, was about 2007, I'm going to say. I went out to Santos out at Moomba. And I go out there and as a advisor, and one of our people that we'd been doing training for asked us to go out there and things like that. And we went out there, and They said, it's an oil and gas job. This is top of the pops and everything like that. I went, okay. And then I found out that they have an isolation list and you do things like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it was like, well, that's no different to different, but same. You got to do things by the list. And you do it, and the reason why you do these. And in oil and gas too, don't get me wrong, the repercussions for doing it wrong there are astronomical. Right? There's a reason why they have an isolation list that says 1, 2, 3, not 1, 4, 3, and things like that. So, and it was, when I got out there, all of a sudden it was like, okay, I get it now. Like, it's sort of just another experience, I suppose, that helped me build some of that knowledge around isolation or lockout, tag out, or things like that, right? That we may not be doing it, particularly now that I'm in HSE or anything like that, but, we often get asked to do an investigation, or we've had an incident where a lockout has failed or they haven't tagged on or something like that. And you're looking for some of those common denominators, right? Is there a procedure? How did we do it? Right? What did we miss? Things like that. So, that was my first experience into oil and gas, and for a lot of us, and myself included, the client per se is the one that's managing all of that, and us as contractors, we're waiting on them to set the work front for us and everything like that. But we have people as contractors that are doing that work for them.
Yeah, for sure. Would there be a person or an incident that occurred that really pricked your interest when it came to safety and getting into safety and sort of moving away from that fitter operational type roles?
Yeah, I fell into safety. And it was, I'm going to say 2007. Once again, it might be 8, give or take, but we were doing training at a $250,000 water project down there in Gippsland, and the project manager, Gippsland Water Factory, and the project manager from there ended up at Port Kembla up there doing a demolition construction, and he seen my name and he went, I know that bloke. Where do I know it from? And the person who engaged us went, he's been down at Gippsland Water Factory doing it. He went, that's where I know him from. Bring him up here. Right. And that's how I got into safety. And I think I cast the mind back nearly 20 years now. It's because on that project, a rigger lost his leg because they didn't have an A-frame supported, and it fell off on a rail siding and took his leg off below his knee. And they wanted some infield people out there to go and walk with the people.
Yeah.
Get out in the field. Sure. And that's how I started.
Yeah. What's probably the biggest misconception you think people have about the safety roles, safety industry? How long is a piece of string? This could go a while.
In safety, there's horses for courses. You have people that are very system orientated, which are great at what they do. So setting up for audits and tier 1 practices and things like that, right? That are very, very good because they're structured, right? And then you have others that are generalists. And I like to think of myself as a generalist. Like, I don't know everything. I'm far from knowing everything. But I know a lot of things. And you look at it and go, that's not right, or that's, and so for people in safety, I think you've got to understand what do you want from a person. If you want someone out in the field amongst your team, building confidence and trust, you've got to be seen. You've got to be seen. You've got to be able to talk to them. And I always encourage my advisors, if I've had advisors working for me, go and ask them what they're doing. Told them, ask them, can you explain to me why you're doing it like that? Build your knowledge by having people, for want of a better word, subject matter experts, SMEs, tell them why they're doing it like that, or tell you why they're doing it like that. I've had advisors where I've said, you're going to go and work with the scaffold crew for 3 days. And they're like, why am I doing that? Because you need to know. You need to know what scaffolding looks like. You need to know what framework looks like. You need to know what
Yeah.
fitting work looks like, right?
Yeah. So you're telling me we can't. You're telling me we can't do it all by academics and from behind the desk.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Don't get me wrong. There are some very, very astute people in the safety world, right, that would sit in that rarefied air,
Yeah.
right? That's just different air that we all breathe, right? And and when you start talking process safety and things like that, and you're talking metallurgists, you're talking things about you know cryogenics and temperature changes and all that sort of stuff, and oil and gas and LNG and all that that's getting up there in the engineering perspective. And sure, we sit in on that, but that's specialized work. You've got to have some engineering perspective or some chemistry or things like that sit in with that.
For sure.
So I'm a big one, particularly young people that are they don't have to be young people that are starting in safety, right? I would write for my advisors. I would write down at the start of a project or whatever. Say, what do you need? What do you want to learn? And I would write it on a whiteboard, right? And I would put things up there, right? And then I would say, and these are the things I think that you should know. You should know. And I'd write them on the other side of the whiteboard. And over the next 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is, we would work through them. Where would you get that? Where are you going to find that information? Who do you speak to about that? How do you know that that's correct? And they go, oh, you go here and you look at this, and there's a compliance code for that, and then there's that, and because you can't be all things to everyone.
100%.
But it's like, oh, I reckon if we have a look in the compliance code, there'll be something in there about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
I think like engineers or people that are wired that way on data are very, very good at recalling standards and specs and everything like that, right? Sure, if you're working in that world, absolutely. Like, do I know the compliance code for confined space, for example? Yeah. Do I know it intimately? No. But do I know enough about confined space to go, where's your lockout tag out? Where's your atmospheric testing sheet? Where's your standby person?
Yep.
Where's your permit? Right?
Yep.
All that sort of stuff. And then you get down to the nitty gritty.
Yep.
Yeah,
for sure. If there was one skill you had to learn and learn it the hard way, what was it?
Ooh. I'm going to say, and it depends on whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or ambivert, but I was very much an outrageous what am I trying to say? Not an introvert.
Extrovert? Were you a safety cop?
Yep, sorry. And you're all, and you're trying to provide answers all the time. And I found early days, what you got to do is you just got to stop and listen and not say a word sometimes. Sometimes it's better to sit and read the room and then walk away and think about things afterwards. You can't have all the answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with all of that.
Yeah, and a lot of younger people that I've worked with, particularly, I'm not saying, particularly guys, I'm not being sexist here, but particularly guys like, oh, we can do this. Oh, and it's like, I've had to, through my experience, I've sort of had to say to people, just pull that in. Just let the smart people in the room speak, right? And then we'll go away afterwards and work out what that's going to look like.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. So if there was a professional challenge that you faced in your career that's helped you grow, what was it?
Oh, certainly when you start dealing with project managers and you're starting to deal with executive teams and things like that, when they're asking you to come into the room because you're the lead, they're looking towards you for answers. How are we going to do this? What are we going to do? And things like that, right? So you're sort of sitting in there. And the other thing is, particularly early days, you're sitting in there, particularly when I first got into oil and gas, you're sitting in there with guys that have got 30 years experience, 40 years experience, project managers running $100 million projects plus. And they're like, and have you got anything to say? And you're sitting there going, I got nothing to say. right? But you're doing the duck thing, all
Yeah.
calm on the water, and you walk out there. It's like, geez, what are we going to do here, right? But once again, when you surround yourself with good people, or you have good people on your team, what do you reckon? Oh, what I've done, you're like, well, that sounds all right. So you don't have to have all the answers, but to be able to sit in a room with some heavy hitters, people that have been well up the food chain in refineries and gas plants, and executive or general managers and things like that, right? And just listen to what they've got to say, and then go, yeah, okay, let's just take that away and be quite pragmatic, because a lot of the times, a lot of good companies they've already got the procedures, they've already got the knowledge, they've already got the people, they've just missed something, and they just need that time to calm down.
Yeah, for sure.
Get away from the noise, get in a room and say, right, what does this really look like for us? And so one of the things I've had to learn is to have the confidence to be in that room, because they're looking towards you, because you're being engaged at that level of a position because of your ability to deliver something. Doesn't matter what it is, but something, and they will look towards you, right? And sometimes it's about not having the answers all the time, but it's about having that pragmatic approach to go, well, what's this look like if we don't do this right next time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do recall a number of years ago, I went back to Blue Scope. I provided a confined space standby team, well, not multiple confined space standby teams, for a shutdown at the hot strip mill. And I do remember walking into the room, and the shutdown managers were there, and they had what are they? I think it's a Gantt chart from memory.
Yep.
And it mapped out this whole shutdown, and it literally went all the way around the room. And I remember just looking at this thing going, whoa, and I think you're right. Like, there's some pretty smart people in the room sitting there, and they know how to do that stuff, but you're spot on. They're bringing in these subject matter experts to help them achieve that goal. And it took me, probably like many others, that first time I went into that room and saw that and was doing inductions and other stuff, and I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing here? But then I realized I'm here because they needed that subject matter expertise. This one was confined space to get that done.
Yeah. So,
a
lot of the times you've been brought into the room to make a problem go away.
Yep.
We've got a problem. Here it is. It's not a blame thing. We've got a problem. This is the issue. What do we need to do to make this go away?
Yep. Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. How do we move forward?
Absolutely. Let's talk about mentors. How important are they?
Oh, exceptionally. Yeah. Exceptionally. I still have people that I've worked with across the industry ring me, and vice versa, as a sounding board. Say, hey, I've got this problem. All right, shoot. And they'll speak to me, and they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah. Well, have you thought about this? And it's about having someone that you can go to just to throw something from left field up at them. And a mentor can be many different people for different things, and consequently, you have a gut feeling that you're like, geez, I wouldn't mind someone having an eyeball on this to have a look, see what they've got to think. And it's like, oh yeah, that. So I have a couple of them in different fields, but where I'd ring them up and say, hey, I got a problem here. What do you think? And like, oh, and by the same token, the same mentors or the same people that I call will go, can you give me an hour? Let me have a think about that. Right? And then they'll come back to you. So once again, it's not having all the answers. It's about having that time to breathe, think about it. Have you thought about this?
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk professional development and training for a second. Over the years, is there a particular course or study that you undertook that was probably the most transformative for you, that really gave you that light bulb moment?
Yeah, I'm going to say probably when I done my auditor's course with Jeff Gray from
Yep.
Gray's, um, and it was the lead auditor's course. So I think you do 4 subjects there or something like that, whatever it is. Lead an audit, prepare for an audit report,
Yep.
write a report, and everything like that. And I just went, I need to be doing more of this. I need to be going. I feel that I need to be going in and having a look at things and saying, look, your procedures say this. It says you should be doing this every 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. You're not doing it. And by the same token, I've also been at the other end of the audit where it's like, do you know that it says this? And you're like, no. When I first got into tier 1 construction, it was like your procedures. We're 3 months into a new project. It's like, never read that, particularly during COVID. So I'm going to say auditing. That was the one where it was like, yep, you say you're going to do it, but you're not doing it. And that's transformative across many different fields. That's not just like, we're doing an audit now. And particularly the background for investigations now, the first thing I typically ask is do you have a procedure? Right? Your procedure says you should do this. I go, can you please provide me with some evidence?
Yeah, for sure.
So
yep. How do you keep your skills current? What's your go-to?
Yeah, look, do a lot of reading, YouTube, investigations, things like that. Go back into the field every now and then. Like I've just finished a job down at Geelong, and I've got to say I was a permit to work coordinator down at Viva Refinery down at Geelong on a greenfield site. Really opened my eyes up around, I was working with some really good people down there that had done that stuff before. So like, even though I knew about permitting and everything like that, this was the first time, and it was a greenfield. So we had no hydrocarbons or anything like that. So it's really good to go back in there under a different role, HSE as well, but under a different role and go, ooh, I learned lots, particularly in the last 3 or 4 months.
For sure.
Go back into the field and do some HSE work.
Yeah, for sure. Just for those that are not familiar, greenfield, brownfield, what's the difference? What are they?
So in the world of oil and gas, when we say greenfield, there is no hydrocarbon in the pipe. It is a brand new site. We usually or typically will fence it all off and everything like that. Brownfield is where all the hydrocarbons kept on the other side of the fence, and we'll have a spade in or a blind spade, depending on what you want to call it, that prevents it from coming into us. And then we will build everything, and at a certain point in time, we'll turn to brownfielders when they remove the spade and bring hydrocarbons in. So that's when I finished last Wednesday.
Yep.
So cool. I done nearly 12 months there. It was $350 million project doing HSE and permit to work and things like that.
So what does success look like? Like if you talk about projects like that and, you talked about Moomba and other shutdowns you've done, as a safety leader or advisor, whatever the role is at the time, how do you measure the success of that program and what you've been doing?
Oh, look, you talk to a lot of the senior management, and at the end of the day, they will say, if we hurt someone, we've failed at this shutdown. Yep. That's the benchmark, right? They said we can go over budget, we can go over time, we can do all of that. They said, but if we significantly hurt someone, we've failed on this project. Yeah, and that's the end of the story, right? We might hurt someone with their finger, but they're talking like someone's had a significant fall or a significant injury or whatever. They'll just say that they've failed.
Yeah,
end of story.
Yeah, fair call. If you're comfortable to talk about it, and I'm happy if you don't want to, but you were involved in an incident a number of years ago that resulted in a fatality, and then got dragged through multiple courts and coroner inquests and so forth. You're happy to talk about that with everyone?
We
don't need to mention names and so forth. I'm quite happy not to, but what did that take? Let's take it back. What was that process like? And I'm going to share for a second. I remember getting the call from Sam. So that night, you rang me and said, this had happened. Yeah. And I went, Holy shit
Uh,
balls.
yeah,
Talk
yeah,
us through that process. Like what goes through your mind? Let's not talk specifics of that
yeah.
incident, but let's just talk about as a safety advisor. What goes through your mind?
So we'll talk about, I'll talk about the day,
Yeah.
right? I'll talk about the day, then I'll talk about everything that transpired onwards from there.
And I will say for people, this might get a bit heavy, but Sam's had an opportunity to do stuff that a lot of people probably never will get to do in terms of inquests and court cases and stuff like. And I hope no one ever does. I mean,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
and
Don't wish it on
I've
anyone.
been in court as an expert witness, and oh my god, it was the most intimidating process I've ever been through. But yeah, go Sam.
So, so a young fellow, he got crushed on a drill rig, and you do find that like you are by yourself. Like you can have all the training, you can have all the people, all the help, but until it goes pear shaped, you don't know how people perform. And I had some people. Luckily, on that day that a young person got his head crushed, on that day I seen the best of some people there. I seen some people that were outstanding. And just to recap, we had a truck driver turn up on site. So we're out the back of Roma in central Queensland, an hour and a half away from the nearest hospital and things like that. Maybe 2 hours actually, but not that it matters. And a truck driver turned up to the lease on the drill site and he seen what was going down. And as we were starting CPR on this young individual, on this young bloke, I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said to me, he said, "I seen that you look like you needed a hand." He said, "So I've come over to," I said, "We're about to start CPR." And he goes, "I know, mate." And he says, "I'm here to help." And between and this guy and the mechanic and everything were phenomenal, like outstanding. They went for hours. We were nearly 2 hours. By the time we called in the mic, by the time we got someone in there, by the time the chopper come in and everything like that, we'd gone an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours before we got significant help
Yeah,
and things like that. And you're on the sat phone trying to give eastings and northings and things like that, and the sat phone's not working properly. Well, it's working, but they got the lag on it. And then, in Australia here, they want to know where's the nearest crossroad of the intersection, and it's like, I don't know, mate. I'm 90 kilometres
80
out.
k's that way.
Don't even know what road it is. Here's the eastings and northings. We can't do anything until you give us a road. Okay. You're telling me I'm standing here by so that you have a level of frustration. However, help did come and things like that. So we lost him. It was 3 hours, 3.5 hours before we were able to, or before it was called. Sorry, by the time the doctors come and everything like that, right? But and I remember for days things coming back. Like I wrote out a statement and everything like that within the next 24 hours or something like that, 48 hours. And then it was like, and there was this, and there was this, and there was this, and things like that. And, just things come flooding back. So, if anyone's ever been in that situation, I would recommend a few things. One of them is don't rush your statement because things will come back time and time and time again, right? If you have the opportunity to have a note taker or a scribe, have one. Because he wrote down 8 pages off my watch and it was like, oh, I didn't even remember that, things like that. And that was the sort of stuff that went to court. I mean, it's like, you said it, I don't know, 3:35 in the afternoon, you called 000. Yes. What did you say? Oh, I don't know. I called 000, wanted a chopper.
Now,
Things
sorry,
like
just
that.
for people that don't understand, what was the time frame between the incident and your first court case?
Oh, I'm going to say about 4 years.
There you go. So 4 years, and somehow
Yeah.
you've got to magically recall what you said at 2:15 in the afternoon, and you go,
Yeah. So, and 4 years might, I remember it happened in 2013, in July 2013. I reckon my first time I went to court might have been 2017 or 18. It got postponed. I went to court 3 times in the end, twice to give evidence and the third time for the coroner's court. And I reckon that took till maybe 19. So, and and the many lawyers that were involved and the whole thing like that. So it's quite arduous, and you would build up for it. Then you get a phone call the night before saying, "Oh no, it's been postponed." Right?
What a
And
roller coaster! Like you would
yeah,
be psyching up,
yeah,
and then
yeah. And you come home and you would get home and you'd be just flat, and court is very much about the facts and about the law. It's not what you think. It's not what you feel. It's like, did you write this email? Is my name on that email at that time and date? Yes, it is. I wrote that email. They're not interested in, all that sort of stuff. Did you do this? Yes, I did. Did you do that? Yes, I did. Is that what my note says? Yes, your note says that you said this. That's what I said. And that's basically how it happened, how it transpired over those 6 or 7 years. And in the end, you would become quite short with the system, clearly, and and you're sitting in front of the coroner and things like that, and it's like, did you do this? What does my note say? It says that you said this. That's what I done. And thank you, Mr. Lloyd. You're now excused. And it's like you build up and build up and build up because you're expecting all of this, and they're just very, very matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was called as an expert witness. I'm going to say 2 years ago. I've lost track of time now. On behalf of WorkSafe for a fire that happened at a power station, and I was on the stand for, I'm going to say, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And this was only the what do they call it? I can't remember what they call it. They're looking whether they're going to proceed to a full court case or not. I can't remember. Preliminary everything. I can't remember the formal name.
Whatever else, yeah.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
They called in to question everything. The only thing they didn't question is what colour shirt I was wearing on the day and why I chose that shirt. Yeah. And they pulled me apart. They pulled apart my experience, my qualifications, my everything, what I wrote. They would find one word in something I wrote in a report and just spend the next 10 minutes ripping that apart, trying to find a hole in it. It was brutal. How did you prepare for that?
So clearly we had a team of lawyers and things like that, and in the end, I was so exasperated by it all. In the end, I said to my lawyer, I don't care anymore. I don't care. We've prepared, we've been stopped, we've prepared, we've been stopped. This is the 3rd, 4th, 5th iteration that we've gone through. I said, I'm not interested anymore. Right? So when they'd ask me, how did you come to that? This is how I come to it. I've had 20 years experience in the industry, right? This is what we do. How do you know that? Because this is what I've done for 20 years or things like that, right? So you become quite short and everything like that. So the first time I gave evidence was like 4 hours. And it's very intimidating up there. It doesn't take, I often don't get intimidated by too much, but when you're sitting in there and there's half a dozen, 8 lawyers there from each side and things like that. And you wrote this email on this date. Yes, I did. And you become very disengaged with the process. You just answer yes, no, I can't recall. So it become quite a arduous process. And the other thing is you don't get to see what other people said. Right?
No. Yeah, you're isolated.
So you are very, very isolated. So I wouldn't wish it upon anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I recall with mine, you're right. I was isolated from everyone. I wasn't allowed to hear anything that was said prior. And I remember at one stage they actually called a brief adjournment because there were some issues with some paperwork and who had copies of stuff I'd done. And the magistrate had left the courtroom. And I said something and I was pounced like you wouldn't believe. Don't talk. Don't say anything. Well, I literally, I think from memory, I just clarified a copy or like a version of a report or something like that. I can't quite remember what it was, but like what a process. And I must say, and mine was nothing on yours. I mean, mine was a fire, no injuries, no fatality, no nothing. It was just a fire. well,
Yeah.
justifier. It had big consequences if it really went belly up. But I found, probably a good 24 hours afterwards, I was shattered. Like,
absolutely. You're cooked.
mate, I think I questioned everything I'd ever said and done in my whole life in the next 24 hours. It was almost soul destroying.
Yeah, so you cooked afterwards, and my partner at the time and everything like that. You come home and she'd be like, "You right?" I'm like, "Nah,
No.
just flat. Like, just felt like everything had been sucked out of you. The nervous energy, the whole lot that goes with it. So I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, right? But it's given me some real perspective about what law is about as well.
Mm,
And
So,
I often say, if the last words out of your mouth are "Your Honour," you'd want to be right.
so let's talk about that. So how has that incident changed how you perform now as in your safety roles?
Oh, look, it's always about, like, in safety, we've always got risk. It doesn't matter what we do, we've always got risk, right? So otherwise we wouldn't get out of bed. And even if we get out of bed, we'd hurt our back and spill our coffee on our lap or something like that, right? So you've got to be very pragmatic around how you actually approach things. And the big thing I always say is, have we got a procedure and are we following it? All right? Yes, we've got a procedure, but we're not following it. And I'm like, well, ladies and gentlemen, like, I'm not going to tell you to suck eggs, but there's a reason why the procedure's no good. I'm not disagreeing with you here, but we've got to actually have a pragmatic solution about what we're moving into here. Have we done a risk assessment? Have we done this? Have we got our boxes ticked to ensure that we can go through as seamlessly as possible to ensure that we can get this work done? And the classic one, we have out on site all the time, with the wind and everything like that. I get people ask me about the EWPs and cranes and everything like that. And the classic one is, what does the crane company's procedure say about wind? They usually say it's at 12 metres a second, we've got to stop. Well, that's what we do. There it is. There it is, right? Right? It's as simple as that, right? And the EWP might be, off the top of my head, it might be 12 and a half. But I always say, if the cranes have shut down, maybe we should be having a look at what we've got to do as well, right? You can't be half pregnant, right?
I like that.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, and some of those things is you're actually advising them, right, on the right side of the ledger, to say, hey, you understand, if we go and do this, right, you're actually putting people at risk here, right? Is it an emergency situation? Is it going to cost us millions of dollars? Do we have to save the plant from burning down or whatever? No. Well, we probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So that's one of the things, I reflect, or I try and get them to have some reflection, right? And you get good managers everywhere you go. You get good people, right? They go, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right, but they'll test the boundaries.
Absolutely. Let's talk for a second. I just want to jump back to these court proceedings just for a minute here. We're always talking in safety about documenting and that sort of diarised notes, all that stuff, emails, notes. Where did all that fit in for you?
Look,
like, how important was all of that through that process?
So there was only two things that I look back at now. And so the first thing was prior to the incident happening, I wrote an email to the state safety manager and others saying that you can't do this because it's not recognised as a safe system of work, blah, 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 and everything like that, right? Basically, they were saying, whenever you enter into this area, you've got to hit an E-stop. And I said, an E-stop's not a recognised functional...
it's not a lockout tagout.
Not a lockout tagout,
right? It gets treated as one, but it's not.
Yeah. I said it should have proximity lights and it should retract, or you should do things on your on-ROM screen to... when we do this, it should do this and things like that. I wrote that email 3 months before the before the incident happened. And that email come up in evidence. And once again, it was like, did you write that email? Yes, I did. Of course I did. It's got my name on it, right? And then it's like, well, how did you come to that conclusion? Once again, 20 years experience, blah, 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 everything like that, right? Where did that email go? I don't know. I sent it to my national or state manager, right? I don't know, right? So there is a cap or a ceiling where some of us don't get invited to, right? So they said, and basically the court said, thank you very much, right? They left that alone because they already had that in evidence, right? And then when they referred to my notes, I had about 8-page diary notes about on the day and things like that. And they didn't really go through that because that was, we shocked him. We'd done this. We applied first aid. We commenced CPR. I rang the chopper. I done this. I done that. And everything like that. And they had that as evidence as well. And they said, and then what did you do? I said, what does my note say? And they said, oh, it said you used you completed CPR and then you used the defib. Yep. Yeah, that sounds right. Then what did you do, Mr. Lloyd? And I said, what does my note say? It said you commenced CPR again. That's what we done, right? Or I rang the chopper, or and things like that, right? So, so at that top level, they were never after me, or they were never going there. They already knew what had happened. They were just validating. Who wrote this? Why'd you write this? Where did it go? I don't know where it went. They knew where it went, right? But for me, at that level, it was just that confirmation of the tick in the box, right? Yes, we already knew that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lloyd. Thank you very much, Mr. Lloyd. And all the way through. And once again, because I'm not privy to what others had happened, right? I don't know how far up the food chain that went.
Yep.
So that would be fly on the wall sort of stuff that would fascinate me.
Yeah, for sure. So based on that experience, and then let's move forward to where you are today. You've been involved in other incidents in various roles, as a safety manager advisor, as well as an investigator with us and so forth. How do you cement lessons learned into organisations post-incident? What's your methods and processes for doing that?
I look at a couple of things from my perspective. I look at what can we do right now? How are we going to protect the person at the front end, right? I said, because a lot of organisations, to get a new procedure up may take 12 months. By the time they consultate and go through all the things, may take 12 months, right? To get a procedure reviewed and updated may take 3 or 4 months, right? So I look at, from a lessons learned perspective, what do we need to do right now to offer protection for people at the front line, right? So I often, when I write a recommendation or a lessons learned or whatever, it's like, your procedure says this, how are we communicating that to the people? And same with the auditing. Whenever you do auditing and things like that, I look at it and go, yeah, your procedure says this, right? But what's old mate Joe, the truck driver? Let's go down and see whether he actually understands what the procedure says. And they go, oh, rightio, Joe, what do you know about this? And if he can rattle off 2 or 3 things from the procedure, like, oh, okay, that means it's cascaded down in some context. But if he's like, oh, I don't know, it's like, hang on, we've got a disconnect here about the front end. So I always look at it from a perspective of what are we going to do from the perspective of looking after your people. There's 2 things I learned in Tier 1 construction from a state manager. And he said, Sam, 2 things we need to manage. He says, you need to manage your risk. He says, you need to manage your people. He said, if you fail on any one of them, he says, we're in for a world of hurt. He says, we can always do paperwork. We can always do all of that sort of stuff. But if we ain't managing those 2 things on an active level, he says, you can have all the paperwork you like in the world. He said, it won't change anything. He said, so I always look at it like, what are we doing to offer protection to those people out there?
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've jokingly said, I've called you a union buster at times. Sam, you've got a bit of a reputation at times of getting called into some pretty tough situations and tough environments that are heavily unionised and so forth. How do you manage those sort of relationships? And not just unions, but I guess just, let's call it a spade, pissed off workforces, stuff like that, whether it's a union or not. But how do you manage that? How do you manage relationships?
Well, that's one. And safety, when you boil it down to some of its essence, is about relationships, right? It's about having skin in the game, right?
Say that again for the people at the back of the room. It's about what?
It's about relationships and having skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
It's about being visual and being seen, right? So it's not like, oh, here he comes again. It's his weekly walk. It's about being seen every day.
Yep.
Talk to the people,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Unions are a very interesting thing, particularly here in Victoria with the CFMEU and AMWU and everything like that. And I often have companies ring me where, oh, would you be interested in a role with us? What's your role? Blah, blah, blah. How's your relationship with the union? I said, I've got no problem with the union, right? They've got their playbook. They do whatever they
And you've been a union member for many years yourself, going back to your operational days.
Absolutely, back in the day, right? I said, the first question I asked the company is what's your superintendent doing? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, I don't manage people out in the field. I don't have people do things for me out in the field. A construction manager, a construction superintendent, a senior site supervisor has people out in the field managing things like that. So if the union says, you haven't done this or you haven't done that or you haven't done that, chances are we haven't done it. Right? So it's not about safety being at the forefront, managing the CFMEU or the AMWU or AWU or anything like that. It's like, we're going to pull them in the sheds because they're not doing this right. I was like, okay. Like, that's their prerogative. That's how they do some things, right? Because people aren't taking it seriously. Now, they'll have an agenda, and I have advisors say, we've got the union organisers coming out tomorrow. What are we going to do? I said, nothing. They'll come out, they'll have a playbook, whatever that is, right? And we've got to have the documentation. So I've had a lot of senior site supervisors, superintendents, all that say, what do you want from me? They say, just pick up the phone when I call you. They'll be like, can you please provide this? Can you please provide that? And we'll provide that. And there'll be some discussion and everything like that. And then they might move on to something else, right? So they have a role. We have a role. It is what it is, right? And a lot of the times, as a HSE manager, senior site advisor, things like that, I always ask, what is your construction superintendent or your construction manager doing it? Because they're the ones that got to manage the workforce, right? We'll have the documentation, we'll have the paperwork, we'll have to provide training, all of that sort of stuff. I get all of that, right? And there's always cracks. Always cracks. While we've got many moving parts, you will have people that slip through the cracks every day of the week, right? And it's like, you haven't trained this person. And be like, okay, cool. No worries. Thank you. Let's go and train them or do whatever they need to do to make that happen. Yeah. Right? Yep. So there's things like that. And does it feel right sometimes? No, it doesn't, right? But it is what it is. So, and the other thing is, with the unions here, in particularly in Victoria, delay, distract, and disturb. It's not a personal thing. That's what they're there for, right? And if they're doing it on your site, guess what they're not doing on another site? They're not doing that. So there's one of the things I learned through one of the courses with, is that's what they're there to do, is delay, distract, and disturb. Right? If they're doing it on your site, they're leaving another 3 other sites alone. It's just your turn. Right? That's...
I remember many years ago going to a hypothetical, panel hypothetical. I can't remember the guy on TV that used to do the thing where he runs you through a scenario and he's got a panel of experts that talk about their things and what they do. And on this particular hypothetical, it was part of a health and safety show. And they had a member, a union organizer on the panel, and they're talking to him, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're going to the media, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And then as the hypothetical unfolded, the facilitator said, it turns out all the stuff you were focused on was actually incorrect. This is what actually happened. So what are you going to do now? And I still remember his response. My first reaction is I was shocked. And then I sort of thought a bit about what he said. And I thought, well, it's an interesting insight. And it probably ties in with what you just said. And he said, well, if we don't get them on this thing, we'll come back, we'll get them on something else.
Yeah.
And for a moment, I sort of jaw hit the ground. I thought, wow, what did he just say? But then I thought, it's interesting insight. If that's what it is, then that's what it is. Yep. Let's not give them a reason to to go hang their hat on something.
So
if there's an issue, then let's address the issues.
Correct. And that's where the site construction manager or the superintendent comes in. It's like, well, go and do it.
Yeah.
If they need you to do it, go and do it.
Yeah.
If the barriers aren't full of water, guess what?
Yeah.
Fill them full of water. We're going to have to move them tomorrow. Well, you're going to have to fill them full of water today, and then you're going to have to empty them tomorrow, and then you have to move them tomorrow afternoon. Right? And make no bones.
It is what it is.
Make no bones about it. They're well resourced, right? They're well versed in what they can and can't do, and they have backroom operators, right? That they'll ring and say, "Oh, they've got this, they've got that, they've got this." They go, "Yeah, that's cool. What about this?" Then they come back another 5 minutes or 10 minutes later or whatever it is, right? And at the end of the day, they're not your mate, right? They're union orientated. That's how they respond. That's what they do. It's not a personal thing. They can make it personal very easily, but at the end of the day, they've got a role to play, whether it's right or wrong. Right? You got to remember, some of these guys are experts in their field too. They've been doing concrete, or they've been doing cranes, or they've been doing rigging for 20 or 30 years as well, right? They're no dills.
No.
Right? Yeah, you might get them on, say, asbestos. They'll go, "Oh, okay, yeah, blah, blah, blah," and they'll let that one slide. But some of the stuff that they are subject matter experts in their field. So make no bones about it, right? You may have some correspondence where they go, this bloke's a dill or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Maybe today he is, but you can guarantee tomorrow he won't be, right? So, the unions are and sometimes they are bang on the money, right? They're like, our members won't listen, so we'll go and put them in the shed.
Yep.
Okay.
Does this differ when dealing with regulators? Old mate WorkSafe inspector turns up on site and says, "Mr. Lloyd, we're going to have some conversations."
Yeah. So I learned quite a bit being a standalone safety person on some $100 million projects and things like that, right? And you have subcontractors and WorkSafe turn up, sometimes announced, sometimes unannounced, depending on what their agenda is for the day. And if it's on a proactive visit, they'll usually give you a bit of a heads up, because they just want to get a scope of the project. So they'll have a look at the project, right? And they'll go through and go, "Oh, I think you should be doing this." And you'll be like, "You're right." Right? So typically, I've found a good WorkSafe inspector will be like, "Oh, is there any water in those in those barriers there?" You'll be going over. He or she might be like, "Oh, I think there should be water in them," and be like, "I'll get onto that for you right now." Right? So it's having that proactive response about what they're going to say and how you respond to them with WorkSafe. If they come out, WorkSafe's very, very clear, right? As we all know, you can't be half pregnant. Did you provide a safe site to work at? Yes or no? Right? You're out here because we've hurt someone, or we've rolled a piece of equipment, or we've dropped something, or whatever.
Something's triggered it.
Something's triggered it, right? Clearly, you haven't provided a safe workplace. But what they're looking for, once again, is we go back to what I spoke about 10 minutes ago. What are you doing to provide a safe system of work for the people at the front? Right? We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Great, thank you very much. Can you please put that in writing and document that and how you're going to do that? And then we'll have a discussion about releasing the work site or whatever we've got to do. So once again, they know we've got procedures. They know that we've got this big end of town. We've got corporate people and everything like that. They're more interested about what are we going to do with these people at the front end. How are you going to manage this site safely?
Yeah.
Right? Before I release this to go back to work.
Yeah.
So I find that WorkSafe, once again, if you work with them, you're not combative, right? Things like that. You can have some robust discussion with them by all means. But if you work with them and go, "Yep, we'll get that sorted," and you get the construction superintendent or the construction managers or the project managers engaged at that level, say, "Hey, we need to do this," and they can see that happening, you'll find you get really good here in Victoria. You'll get really good outcomes typically.
Yep. Fair call. You've worked on some big projects. I think the Viva, did you say that was $130 million?
Viva, the last one we just done was 350 million
Three
at Viva.
hundred and fifty million dollars. I can't even comprehend that sort of money. How do you handle and how do you manage incompatible goals? I mean, we've talked about project managers and these smart people in the
Yeah,
room. They've got their Gantt chart that tells them everything they're going to do for this project and how it's going to end. They've got their $350 million budget. It's got to be done within 90 days, and this is how we're going to do it.
yeah,
And then you turn up and go, Houston, we have a problem. How do you
yeah. Look,
manage that incompatible goal and those conflicts and tension?
one thing I learned off an old school project manager 15, 18 years ago, you can only have one priority one. Right?
Go on.
You can't have
Go
one
on.
A, one B, one C, one D, one E. You can only have one priority one. So I would then say, you tell me which one is your most pressing priority. Get them to make the decision, and then we'll work around how we can offer layers of protection there. Well, while they're doing that, can we do this? No, we can't do that, but can we go and do this? So it's having that pragmatic approach about, so what's your number one priority? Oh, they're all, yeah, I know, they're all number ones. Yes, mate, I've heard it all before, right? What's your number one, right? And you get them to define it. We've got to get this done for whatever reason. It might be because of cranes coming. It might be resources, whatever it is, right? Because, depending on a shutdown, you might have a 650-ton crawler crane that's only going to be there for 3 weeks, right? You might have a team of specialist contractors that come in and say they're going to fly out on a plane in 10 days' time and they're going to go to Saudi Arabia or America or whatever, right? They're doing this work. So it's like, well, that's your number one priority then, isn't it? Yeah, but we've got to, and you get them to clarify. So I find if you can have that robust discussion where you can say, what's your number one? Because if you tell me what your number one is, then we can work about how we're going to offer a level or layers of protection to our people.
Yep. Yeah, cool.
Right? Because then you'll have sim ops and all that sort of stuff. And and I just say to them, I said, no worries. I said, we'll build scaffold while we're doing this work. And when we drop a scaff tube and we ring WorkSafe and they've got to come in, we've got to quarantine the area. I said, it's quarantined for 8 hours or 12 hours or 16 hours. I said, where's your number one now? Right? And it's like, I'm advising you. I advise you to do these things because of these reasons. Right? You've now been advised. What you go and do, right, is entirely up to you. But this is how I would go about it. I'm not saying I know how to build it.
Yeah.
Right? Far from it. Right? I don't weld. But what we need to do is we need to do this safely. We manage our risk. We manage our people.
Yeah.
Do those two things. Happy days.
All right. So that's around the leadership on a side. How do you handle a culture of employees that are not engaged with safety, don't see the value, don't see the benefit? Safety is a cost. Safety slows us down. Safety is a pain in the ass. Here he comes again.
Yeah, you get them to hold up their hand, they're missing 3 fingers or whatever it is like that, and everything like that. And you get them. You go, oh, this is a waste of time. I go, you're right. I said, so you only come to work because you got nothing better to do or what? And they go, no, I've got to provide for a mortgage or I've got to do this or I've got to do that. And I go, well, yeah. So how would your mum, your dad, your wife, your husband, your whatever, your blah, 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 your dog, your cat, whatever, find out that you're not coming home now? Make it personal, right? You're right, safety's a waste of time. Yeah, I know what it's like. You tell me all these things. I said, but what are you going to do? What makes it personal for you? I said, because I work to do these things outside of work. I go and do this, I go and do that, I go and do. What do you do? Oh, I ride my motorbike, my Harley, or I go bushwalking, whatever. So no worries. Go and tie your shoelaces with your left hand. One of them. Yeah? Right?
Soon realise,
right? I said, and it never happens in a vacuum. Like, people don't hurt themselves in a vacuum, right? They don't go out there and go, you know what? I'm going to fall 4 meters from a scaffold because I think it's a good thing to do today, right? it's because they've gone and done something. They don't care. They don't, whatever. But you've got to have that conversation.
Yeah.
It's got to be
for
personal.
Sure. For sure. What do you think defines a great safety leader?
I think there's maybe a couple of things there. The first thing is your ability to listen and cut through the white noise. Because you'll get a lot of, this is a bad place to work and we hate it here and they're this and they're that, and and you get all of that, but you've got to try and cut through to the essence of it all. What's really driving it? What's and so it's that ability to listen. It's the ability to negotiate and participate. Right? Okay, I hear what you're saying. So you're saying this. What do you need to do then? What do we need to do? And listen again, right? Don't take it as a personal front or a personal attack, because you'll often hear it, this place is shit house and I hate working here. Well, we can do one of two things, mate. You can leave, right? I said, because no one's forcing you to be here, right? Well, it's all right for you. Well, no, it's not. But anyway, you can leave. Or what's bugging you? We haven't got any of this. Okay, so let's go and speak to the people that we need to speak about getting the right gear, about getting this, about getting that, right? And it's about the facts. Classic one we had only a few months ago, right? Lifting bags, quantified, certified lifting bags for lifting tools and equipment up columns, right? There was 17 out in the field. There's never enough lifting bags. And you walk around the site, we've got 70 or 80 people working out on site. So that means 1 in 4, right, have a lifting bag. And you walk around, you can see one there, one there, one there. So it means there's 14 lifting bags in the toolbox somewhere or whatever. And it's like, start talking with each other, guys. Right? Your level of frustration is going to cause something because you're not talking with each other. Right? Oh, they're hiding it in their toolbox. Okay. So we go back to this construction manager or the supervisors or whatever and say, guys, there's 17 lifting bags out here. Get them out, right? Because the guys are getting frustrated. So I think listening, got to have really good listening skills, cut through the white noise, and then that negotiation buy-in. And people then go, oh, okay, he's listening to me. B, he's actually tried to go and fix the problem. Small wins, right? It's small wins because you're never going to keep everyone happy.
No.
But and it's those daily wins. You don't have the right piece of equipment. All right, let's go and speak to the person who looks after logistics. Let's get the right piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And sometimes around being a safety leader is you're just going to have to keep knocking on that door. Why do we need this for? Because the compliance code says that we've got to do this and we're doing this. And if we're not doing that, we're not meeting our legislative requirements and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, that's going to cost me $2,000 or $3,000. You're right. You say that to the project manager, you're right. It is going to cost you $2,000 or $3,000, or we can just stop that work. Okay? Find another way of doing it, right? So it's having those quiet conversations, right? I think anyone can yell and scream in a room, right, and be heard, but it's been effective. It's about learning to navigate as well,
right?
Yeah. And having those one-on-one conversations when you go and have a conversation with the project manager, with the construction manager, with the whatever, and say, hey, take it offline and say, hey, we've got to do this. Yeah, I don't appreciate being, bombed, hand grenade thrown in the middle of the room. I understand that, but you understand the level of frustration because this has been going on for, 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months or something like that, right? So it's that softly, but firmly. You've got to do this, and these are the reasons why, right? And we've got more work coming up. So I always think for a safety advisor, or a senior safety advisor, it's also understanding scopes of work, what risks we've got coming up, and being on the front foot, right? There's no point going in there going, oh, I didn't know that was happening. Well, if we don't know it's going to happen, how can we prepare for
it? Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you and I have often talked about over the years is an expression, and I think you coined it to me. I think it was. I don't remember who did it first, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
What's that mean? Let's talk about that. Yeah. What's that mean?
Oh, you'll often find it. People come out and go, what do you know about this? You go, I don't know. First I've heard of it. They go, oh, this is wrong and that's wrong and everything like that. And you're like, and you look at it, and from a pragmatic perspective, you might go, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Right? Sounds like you're right. And it's that trust but verify.
Yep.
And you go, let me have a look at that. Because I don't know, right? So you don't know what you don't know. And it's like, and you go and find someone who does know. So can you step us through that? And that's just building your repertoire, right? It is about having many different strings to your bow. So when someone does ask, you go, no. That's right. And these are the reasons why. Sometimes it's about the underlying knowing, right? And if you don't know, and people ask you stuff from left field all the time. What do you know about this? Not a lot. I know it's dangerous, right? Oh, it says we've got to wear gloves and a face mask, and then we've got to do this and we've got to. Well, that's probably a good start, right? What does the SDS say, right? And have that conversation, right? Because you might be educating yourself as well. Classic one, for example, is we had some painters on site there a few months ago, and they're using a 2-pack epoxy resin type stuff and everything like that, right? What do I know about painting? You can probably write on your thumbnail with the thick black texture, right? And I see them in there, and they're mixing paint and epoxy resins. And I know epoxies, you can have all of this funky stuff that's in them and everything like that. I said to the guys, should you guys be wearing a face mask, a respirator? I know they should because I checked their swims. They're going, yeah. They go, why aren't you? Well, they just give you the shrug of, whatever. And then I said to them, so you're not wearing it. I said, what does your SDS say? Well, I don't know. And I'm like, mate, you're a painter, right? So we go to their shipping container, and there's all their SDSs in the shelf, right? And it's like, let's pull this out. Oh, let's have a look at this. It's a known carcinogenic. It's this, it's that. Mate, come on, right? If you don't know, and that's your craft, maybe you should, right? Maybe you should know, right? As I said, if you've got an SDS there and your swims, and remember, your swims is how your company wants you to do work, or your safe work method statement for those who don't know, or a JHA, or whatever you want to call it, JSA, right? That's how your company wants you to work. So if your company says that you're going to use a respirator, an organic respirator, and you're going to do this, you're going to do that, that's not me telling you, right? Now, you might not know why you should, but if you don't know, you don't know. And then I think it's an education piece for everyone, right? You go there and go, oh, have a look at that. What does that say? And then, so lots of things I don't know. There's lots of things that I don't know, right? There's lots of things that I do know, and I look at something and go, oh, I'm not quite sure about that. Go and find out. Best thing for a HSE advisor, a young HSE advisor, Google.
Yep.
Particularly for the fitting trades and the welding crafts and things like that, right?
Yep.
Oh, what's that material that they're using? Belzone or something like that. Let's have a look at what they use, because I always get my young advisors. Google it, see what they use it for. Oh, they use it for the high temperature metal repairs and welding. So there you go. Right? Things like that, right?
Yep.
Google becomes your best friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much information at our fingertips now.
It's just there. Sit there at smoko or lunch and you go, oh, what do they use Belzone? 543. Oh, they use it for cast iron repairs, and then they can machine it and things like that. Oh, I didn't know that. Right? So,
for sure. Let's go back on a journey as we get ready to wind this up shortly. Let's go back to the pimply-faced first-year apprentice fitter, Sammy Lloyd.
Oh.
What's the one bit of advice you would give yourself on day one as that little apprentice?
Oh, gee whiz.
Were you ever a little Sammy Lloyd?
Oh yeah. I grew 7 inches in 1 year. I started my journey in heavy industry. I started labouring at 15, but I started my journey in heavy industry at 16 and 3 months. And you know, and they wouldn't allow us to go and work out on the floor in the first 12 months because we're all too dumb to do that, right? We're in the apprentice training centre. Yeah, if I look back at it now, I would say don't be scared to ask. It doesn't look right. It's probably not right, you know? And someone should have the answer. Like, if you've got good people around you, you should get good answers or good outcomes.
Fast forward, big Sam Lloyd in his first safety job. Is the advice any different?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. You've got to be inquisitive. You've got to go and ask. And if it's not right, ask. Should we be doing that? And get the people to reflect. Like at 16, you don't know what you don't know, right? I was quite surprised to live to 21, let alone 25, right? And here I am, at 55, right? The life that I led, right? But that was doing things outside of work, right?
We'll get to that.
Yeah. But have an inquisitive mind and ask the reason why they're doing that, right? If someone can't articulate that, you get the, I don't know, maybe you got to go searching a bit deeper.
Yeah.
Get a lot of people go, I don't know, that's how we always do it. And I hate that saying, as we all know.
Yeah.
How we always
I was taught to do this, but they don't understand why.
They don't understand why.
We'll just taught to.
Don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Whereas if I get a rigger or a scaffy or a fitter or a welder or a sparky, the reason why we do this is because of these reasons here, this and this and this and this and this. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it makes perfect sense now, right? Because they've got the knowledge behind it, right? And that's some of the things when I'm having a discussion with someone, I'm looking for that background knowledge. Have you got the essential knowledge that sits behind that to allow you to make a value-based decision?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do a bit of rapid fire as we wind this up. Sam, thank you for your time. Let's try and get to know the real Sam Lloyd.
Right.
First thing that comes to mind when I pop some of these questions at you, mate, are you a sweet or savoury person?
Oh, I'm going to say sweet. You don't get this body without feeding the machine.
Favourite food, whether it's type of food or
look, Indian food with fresh bread and butter roll, just to dump it in there is delicious.
Okay, fair call. First concert you ever went to?
Hoodoo Gurus Festival Hall. I think it was about 1986. I think it was 86, maybe 87.
Did you have hair, long hair?
Yeah. Had all of that. Well, before this all went, this started going in the mid-20s. But anyway,
Hoodoo Gurus. That's a good one. Favorite sports team?
Oh, Melbourne Storm.
Okay, big rugby fan.
Yeah, rugby league. Yep,
for sure. What's one word friends would use to describe you?
Loyal.
Good answer. What's your dream car or dream motorbike?
Well, dream car, either one of two, wouldn't worry me. HT Brougham or an XB Coupe.
Okay. Yeah. What about a motorbike? Now, for those who don't know, you've got to. Well, I don't know whether you still do. You had a bit of a passion for the bikes.
Yeah. I rode off-road motorbikes for 20 years. If I was to buy, it would be an Indian Chief.
Okay.
One of the big roadmasters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we talk briefly about that incident where you broke your leg?
Yeah, you can talk all you like about it. Yeah.
Go on. What happened?
I
digressed a little bit here, but it's an interesting story.
Yeah. So I think I was about 30. I'm going to say about 35, about 20 years ago, give or take. Might be a couple of years shy, one way or the other. I high-sided my bike, riding back to the car. My foot got trapped underneath the bike, and I rolled underneath it. I spiral fractured my tib and fib and my right leg.
So this is dirt bike riding in the middle of nowhere.
Enduro riding. So I was in a plaster cast for 5 months, and then I was in a boot for another month. So I was basically off for six months. Really, I've got to say, I had visions of 3 months. I'm going back. I'm back on the bike and everything like that. And 3 months, they took an X-ray on my leg. Went, no, you can go another 2 months in the cast. So I had 6 months off the bike. Back at that age, and then ironically, I got back on the bike and rode for literally another 15 years. So, and for those of us who ride bikes, 4 wheels moves the body, 2 wheels moves the soul, right? I've been all through up the high country of Victoria and everything like that. Some of the spots that I've seen is just absolutely phenomenal. Great times with some great people out there and everything like that, and COVID actually killed a lot of it. I think I rode twice or maybe 3 times during COVID, and that's been it.
Yeah. Now, there was one little part you glossed over or didn't really talk about. Did you not ride yourself out of the middle of nowhere with a broken leg?
No, I didn't. I tried to take my boot off with my foot the wrong way, and for those of us who wear Tech 8s, they've got a little cam in there that you got to put your booty into and through, and they filled me full of morphine while they rode it, while they pulled it off my leg.
Oh, I think I'm twitching just thinking of
it. Yeah.
No, did Big Sam Lloyd have a tear?
Oh, yeah. Even when he was still full of morphine. And to this day, 20 years on, I've still got issues with my right ankle. But would I give up what I've done over the last 20-something years, mate? No.
No, absolutely. All right, let's keep going. Let's get to know you a bit more. How do you unwind? What's your relaxation? What's your go-to activity now?
My go-to now is I've gone back into sporting clay target shooting.
Yep.
Do that all over Victoria and New South Wales. Come back from, I was in America in April, May, shooting over there in Louisiana and Texas and Mississippi. Off to Italy and Hungary next year to shoot. So that's probably my go-to thing with caravanning.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Fair call. Let's quickly talk about the USA trip. Highlight. What's it like? What's the culture like? And let's talk. We're obviously talking shooting and guns and stuff like that. And everyone's got this preconceived idea about guns in America.
Yep.
How was it?
Oh, you're right. It's a preconceived idea. Look, the Texans. We spent a lot of time in Texas. Texans are lovely people, great people, right?
Don't cross them.
Hospitable. Will do anything for you, and made our trip just what it was, right? They couldn't do enough. Same with people in Mississippi and everything like that, right? So they were lovely people. But you're walking around, there's guns on hips and all sorts of stuff. There's rifles jammed in cars, there's pistols, and just a different world, right? But that's how they live their life. It's one of those things. You ask me, would I go and live there? Oh, geez, I tell you what, I don't know. Is the honest answer. I didn't spend enough time there.
Yep.
To honestly say, would I live there and feel at home? Probably you would. You make the most of what you got and everything like that. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting.
Fair call. What's something that you collect too much or buy too much of?
Oh, something that I collect. I don't collect anything. I buy too much ammo. I've got so much ammo for my clay target shooting. I got slabs of it, And
here we are talking about culture.
Yeah. I got a mate of mine who we all buy as a collectively. We buy a group. We put in an order and everything like that. He's like, sends me an email. Do you want some? And I'm like, nah. And he'll wait like 3 hours, and it's like, I better get me another 5 or 8 or 10 slabs or whatever. And he's like, there it is. Right. So, I don't have a collection of anything. I don't pursue anything other than my clay target shooting.
Fair call.
Yep.
Favorite holiday destination? Where have you been? What's been your fave?
Bright. I go to Bright.
That's it. Yeah, now you again, if I go back when you and I first started catching up and working together and stuff, you pretty much spent every Christmas or every
Yeah,
holiday there, didn't you? It was
yeah.
big.
So I've been going to Bright since I was 8 or 10. But one of my, I go there because friends and family and all that sort of stuff, and I love that high country area. One of the most spectacular places I've ever been, though, and I want to go back there is like Flinders Ranges, like in South Australia and places like that. Absolutely stunning place. You know, haven't done enough of Australia. Want to do more of Australia, but it's a big continent.
Yeah, it is.
It's a
Yeah,
big
it is
continent.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Um, bucket list destination. Where do you want to go that you haven't?
Romania, Albania. Going to Hungary next year, so Croatia, Slovenia, all those sort of
Yep.
those Eastern Bloc sort of
Yep.
places.
Yep.
My ideal thing would be is to be going for like 3 months and then go and rent a joint up in the mountain somewhere and just go from there. Like
Yep.
live there for 2 or
Yep.
3 months in a village.
Yep.
Not
Yep.
interested in the big city.
Yep.
Yeah, go and do all the big ticket items, but yeah, just get in that country area and just go and
Yeah.
see what you know old people go and do and just wind the life right
Yeah.
back down.
Yeah. I have a friend right now as we speak. She's riding her dirt bike from Sydney to London.
Yep.
And she's in Europe now. And I can't remember where. It might even be Romania. Maybe she's moved past her already. I can't remember. But I've been following her on socials and wow,
Yeah.
amazing. And what a way to do it on a dirt bike.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just incredible.
Yeah.
Just following the journey. Just amazing. Your coffee or tea person?
Neither.
What do you drink? Well,
Coke
sorry,
Zero.
hang on. What do you drink at work? What do you drink outside of work?
I rarely drink at all now. I'm pretty much for want of a better word, I'm a teetotaler. The Coke Zero is my
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and red wine. I love a good glass, good bottle of Sangiovese.
Okay.
Or
Yep.
Pinot
You're a
Noir.
morning person or a night person?
Oh, I'm certainly not a morning person. I've never been a morning person. I get up in the morning because I have to, but I'm not a morning person.
And this is coming from the shift worker. How many years?
Yeah, what I end up doing, it was, 10, 11, 12, 14 and 15 years shift worker, things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Talk about mess up the body clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a mess. What's your favourite music genre or band?
Australian rock and weddings, parties, anything is my go-to.
Okay.
Don't mind things like the Angels, Cold Chisel, all that sort of Australian rock stuff. And then obviously, the Foo Fighters and Evanescence and, the Bon Jovis and all that sort of stuff. So just that sort of rock.
Yep. Yep. What was the very first job you ever had?
Yeah. Cleaning butcher shops.
Oh, that's different. Go on.
Yeah.
How old?
So my father used to own a butcher shop in Tyab. And when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, I'd go down there. And on a Tuesday, if I was off or whatever, I used to link sausages on a Tuesday. To this day, I can still link sausages. I can still make and link sausages, and then have to clean the mincer, have to clean the sausage filler, have to clean the floor, have to clean the bench tops and everything like that. So I was doing that for 3 or 4 years, I suppose.
I had no idea. I've known you all these years, and I had no idea. There you go.
Yeah. And my father's career advice. I remember this. We'd just done 1.5 tons of sausages. I think I was about 15. I think, and I'd applied for a motor mechanics apprenticeship at the Border Works here in Melbourne, and a fitters apprenticeship at Blue Scope Steel or John Lysart at the time. I was about 15. The old man says to me, he says, "What do you want to be, son?" I said, "Oh, I don't know, Dad. I'm 15, I don't know, Dad." And he says, "If you become a butcher, I'll kick your ass until your nose bleeds." I didn't become a butcher.
Fair call. Fair call. What's one thing on your bucket list you want to do? Anything at all. If money, time, nothing was off limits, what do you want to do?
Yeah, look, I would say it would be right now, right here, right now, travel through Europe on the shooting circuit and just go over there and shoot like the FIDAS Grand Prix and just spend time smelling like we spend so much time working, we don't spend enough time smelling the roses type stuff. So just go and doing stuff and then see what life has got to do. If I really wanted to boil it down into an essence, I would probably say a month on a canal boat in France, from one end of France to the other.
Yeah, I must admit the Rhine River's on my bucket list on one of those longboats.
One of those longboats or something like that, just travelling down through the locks.
Looks incredible.
Anything like that.
No, I agree.
Any of those big river systems, the Danube, the Rhine, the Seine, whatever, doesn't matter.
Yep. This is going to be your restaurant because I know how much you devour this stuff. Favorite book or podcast?
Ooh, a lot of my favourite books are by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yep.
So Malcolm Gladwell is a very well-resourced writer.
Was he good to great? Was that him?
Good to great, and What the Dog Saw, The Tipping Point, things like that. So I've probably read 5 or 6 of his books.
Yep.
Favorite podcast? Look, I listen to Andrew Rule, Life and Crimes, all the time. Like that's one. But Global Truths was another one by Dr. Keith Suter. He's stopped making them now, unfortunately. So they were 2 that I really used to enjoy. Global Truth was just a 20-minute snippet on a particular topic. And for those of you who are interested, Keith Suter has been on a lot of things around the world. He's got like 3 PhDs or something like that, and just really interesting bloke to listen to.
Fair cool.
Yeah.
What's something you're currently learning?
Something I'm currently learning. Wow. Wow. I got to say, how to shoot better. That sounds funny, but I shoot at a particular level where we have what I call the immortals. So if I shoot at 100 targets and I shoot 87, they'll shoot 95. I've got to try and bridge those 8.
It doesn't sound like much.
It's the law of ever diminishing returns, right? I've still got to shoot those 87, and I've got to shoot the other 5 or 7 as well. So next year, I want to get a 70 out of 75 or a 90 out of 100. They're my targets for next year. So,
very cool. Yeah. Last one, Sam. What's a movie you could just watch over and over again?
Geez, I tell you what, I've watched it many, many times. There's a lot of Aussie ones that I watch, but I've got to say, every time it's on, I've got to watch Mad Max. Right, one that
Number
doesn't
one?
get enough. One.
Number 1, yeah,
or 2. I don't mind 2, but 1. And I also like The Odd Angry Shot.
Okay, fair call. Yeah. There you go. Interesting insight. All right, as we wind this up, Sam, one bit of advice you would give to a new safety person or someone looking to get into safety. Last final word. What is it?
Get involved. Get out in the field. Talk to the people. Ask a question. Ask them. Explain to them. Explain to me why you're doing it like that. Go and be vulnerable and be approachable.
Yeah, good advice. Yeah, fantastic advice. Thank you, Sam, for your time. Look, this has been really interesting, and I must admit, given I've known you so long, there's still things I learnt today. I think it's been really good. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight.
Appreciate
that's been really enjoyable. So thank you, everyone, for your time. Please, if you like the podcast, please be sure to subscribe. Please share it with friends, family, and others you think might like it and so forth. And we'll look forward to the next episode. Thanks, everyone, for your time. Thanks, Sam.
Cheers, Luke. Thank you very much.